all of us, our lives, our traditions, our cultures are embedded in what we depend on for our living to prosper. And humble being, welcoming as we are, then boom, came visitors in our lands. We were colonized, mostly by the northern countries. In Africa, they even had a conference to decide how to divide our beautiful conference. Colonialism undermined our way of life. It introduced consumerism. It uprooted our dignity by extracting minerals from our land and our seas, by disturbing and rendering centuries and centuries of our relationships with our ancestors in the land and in the seas void, eroding our healthy relationship with nature, be the land, the forest, and the seas. This is how today we would always term ourselves as indigenous people, as if we have been taken away from our lands. But it is a system that came into being that we welcomed so much because we are welcoming people that is dividing us. Colonialism has also brought division amongst us. Sometimes you hear people being proud that they are colonized by the British, etc. At least the positive is that we are able to communicate to each other globally with their language. But what colonialism brought to us is an economic system that has stripped us of what we are, a caring people, people who care. We now not only fighting for our lands, our dignity, our seas, we also are fighting colonialism that has used, or that colonialism guised as a so-called development in a form of mining, drilling, and uprooting the very vegetation that we live from. Our governments, including the United Nations, have become the advocates of a system that perpetually has rendered us poor, a system that has desperately brought us to the brink of extinction. We are faced with the longest threats on life on Earth, that is climate change, caused mainly also by over-consumerism and decades of pollution. Those responsible for our misery must be held accountable. They must be held accountable for loss and damage. And loss and damage is a term used in the United Nations and negotiations to refer to the consequences of climate change that go beyond what people can adapt to, or when options exist, but the community does not have access to them. We have to amplify our voices to demand loss and damage reparations. Reparations for overfishing, reparations for overfishing. We do fishing sustainably, and we use indigenous knowledge systems for that do not destroy. Whilst the corporate system, the corporate system against us use destructive methods, including toxic chemicals that poison our seas, that poison our coastal areas. We have to demand reparation for the destruction of our lives and our rivers and the seas. We need to demand reparations for making us poor, making us rely on big corporations that are greedy and are only interested in profits. It is long overdue that we all stand and hold our governments and corporations to degrow their system so that we can be able to live. We can do that in multiple ways, our collective powers, the courts, but we have to reclaim our power, and reclaiming that power would mean that we need to speak in one voice, and we should shout out loud, loss and damage reparations. Thank you.